course, dealing with that elbow injury last week, and it didn't appear to affect anything he did during the game. Weeks 1 to 6, I mean, he had turnovers, like 1 turnover per game, 4 of those being interceptions. But if you look at what he's done year on year, particularly in the last 3 weeks, he's certainly struggling in terms of his red zone efficiency. Already has 3 red zone interceptions, whereas he had 2 between the years of 2018 and 2021. Well, for more on Josh Allen and his situation and other stories from the weekend, let's now welcome in our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. JJ, you just saw the numbers in terms of what we're seeing in terms of a reduction in efficiency in Allen. I don't want to call it a regression at this point because the Bills are still one of the best teams in the league, but what is the level of concern surrounding Allen and his play these past few weeks?
Well, yeah, he's not been the guy that they had hoped that he would be, certainly in the red zone. And you could wonder, are they putting too much on Josh Allen's plate? You could wonder if that right elbow injury was impacting him during that game. He, of course, said after the game that he was not affected or impacted by that elbow at all and certainly wasn't going to chalk up any of his miscues to that injury. But when you look at it, when they get inside the 20, he's about as bad as he's been the last couple of years since Josh Allen really became Josh Allen, since he took that step. His passer rating right now in the red zone is 75.4, which really guys like Trevor Lawrence, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, that's the company he's keeping. Those are the only 3 that are worse than Josh Allen inside the red area. And you mentioned it earlier, the 3 interceptions, 1 in each of the past 3 games there in the red area, where previously in his entire career just 2 interceptions, those 2 coming last year. So, you know, I'm certain that he feels the pressure. He has the entire weight of that entire organization, the fan base on his shoulders. He has plenty of help out there, and so sometimes maybe less is going to be more. Perhaps he's feeling the loss of Brian Daboll. We've seen what he's been able to do with the New York Giants. We know what sort of a program changer, what sort of scheme caller and play caller that Brian Daboll is, with no disrespect at all to Ken Dorsey, who's very likely going to be a head coaching candidate here in just a few weeks, that offensive coordinator. But, you know, whatever it is, the Bills obviously and very clearly want to get it figured out. But I think it certainly starts with Josh Allen, who after the game says, yeah, this is on my shoulders. We've got to clean it up, and he has to be better when they get close to the goal line.
Bills host Cleveland before games at Detroit and New England, where they will try to get their first divisional win this season. All right, well, the Rams are waiting to learn the extent of wide receiver Cooper Kupp's ankle injury. What can you tell us about Kupp's situation and how it could impact the Rams moving forward?
Yeah, so it's still morning out west, and so Cooper Kupp scheduled for an MRI this morning. They are awaiting the results of that MRI. Yesterday, they very much believed that they had avoided all of the bad news. Of course, that injury looked pretty scary as the leg was on the ground and then the defender sort of going into that lower leg area. So certainly don't want to speculate on what it could be, but clearly he's going to be missing some time. And so, you know, on the low end, it would be an ankle sprain, and I think that everyone, Rams and otherwise, would be very fortunate if it is just that. Obviously, we hope that, but MRI results won't be coming back for just a little bit.
3-6 Rams are at 3-7 New Orleans in Week 11, and it looks like they'll be without their top receiver in Cooper Kupp. You see his most games with 10 or more receptions, only second to Tyreek Hill this season with 3. Well, JJ, as we close in on December, the Odell Beckham sweepstakes are starting to heat up as we expected they would. Teams mentioned as possible destinations are the Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, Giants, Niners in there, but now we're hearing the Eagles might be a possible landing spot. What's the latest on the Odell sweepstakes?
You know, I was just texting around with folks yesterday and just trying to get a little bit more on Odell Beckham Jr. And really, when you think about the Philadelphia Eagles, it starts to make some sense, right? Now, I'm not sourcing this with anyone within the Eagles organization, but when you consider what sort of boxes need to be checked, or what we presume the Odell Beckham Jr. boxes are, and it's a multi-year contract. Well, we know that the Philadelphia Eagles can get very creative when it comes to restructuring contracts. We know that, or at least we believe, that he wants to be part of a big brand or a big market. Well, Philadelphia is certainly a big market, and you have a Philadelphia Eagles team that right now is the last undefeated team in the NFL. That dovetails perfectly, Jeremy, into he wants to be on a contender. Well, the Eagles are contending this year, and they're going to keep contending when you consider how Howie Roseman has constructed this roster. When you look at what they have at the quarterback situation, Jalen Hurts still in his rookie deal. And oh, by the way, they got a quarterback that a whole lot of people would love to play with in Jalen Hurts. And then finally, Odell Beckham Jr., a 30-year-old receiver, coming off his second ACL. He's not really going to be that number one wide receiver. At least you can't anticipate or expect that when you sign him. So they got a guy named A.J. Brown, who's the unquestioned number one, and they have the young fella Devontae Smith, who's out there. And so similar to what we saw last year with Odell Beckham Jr., with the Los Angeles Rams, really fitting in where he got in that offense. He can come in there where not too much is going to be asked of him as he continues to ramp back up and acclimate himself to this season post ACL recovery. And then in 2023, he can really find his place there with a Philadelphia Eagles team that I anticipate is going to be contending not just this year, but next year and probably the year after that. And so when you consider, hey, are these the boxes that Odell Beckham Jr. wants to have checked? If so, and interested teams are all trying to figure out if that is truly the case, I'm hard-pressed to find a better fit, ultimately, than the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, you add him to that core. Didn't even mention Dallas Goedert and the numbers that he's putting up this year. Certainly another safe pair of hands for Jalen Hurts as they move forward, trying to stay undefeated. All right, well, Saturday, interesting piece here, JJ. The president of the NFLPA, J.C. Tretter, put out a statement calling for the elimination of artificial surfaces at 6 stadiums, saying they are responsible for elevated injury rates. Now, Sunday, the league responded, saying, actually, they aren't. Given the evolution in surface technology, this seems like a strange debate to be having right now.
I mean, you want to nerd out right now, Jeremy? Because I'll nerd out with you right here. Basically, what you have is you have natural grass versus field turf. And for years, for decades, it was always that natural grass was going to be safer for athletes, especially as it related to lower extremity injuries. Well, over time, up until last year, once we got to last year, and it has continued through this year's preseason, the latest available data shows that it's really what one would call statistically insignificant, the difference between the lower extremity injury rate on synthetic turf versus natural grass. But you got to look deeper into the numbers. And what the NFLPA is calling on is the elimination of a certain type of synthetic turf. And it's called a slit film turf. And it's with 7 teams across 6 stadiums. That difference there is MetLife Stadium with the Giants and the Jets. And what the data shows there is a higher rate of lower extremity injuries on that turf specifically. However, the data can be a little confounding here because what it's showing is that there is a higher rate of ankle sprains. However, the data is also showing that there is a lower rate of ACL tears. And so the question that is out there that no one wants to ask, and certainly no one wants to answer, is how many ankle sprains equals an ACL? How many are you okay with? Are you fine with it being that way? Ultimately, the NFLPA and players that I talk to, everyone, would love to play on natural grass. In the real world, that's not going to happen across 30 NFL stadiums when you consider LA and New York for those 32 teams. And so what do you ultimately get? Well, the PA is at least trying to get the turfs in those 6 stadiums removed. Don't think it's going to be happening tomorrow, but certainly something to keep a close eye on as this debate over playing surfaces is now resurfacing.
Yeah, and all the older guys, JJ, who played on the turf that was basically cement are just like, what are you talking about? This turf is phenomenal nowadays. CBS Sports senior NFL insider Jonathan Jones discussing some of the big weekend stories in the NFL. Thanks, JJ. Great stuff as always. And of course, there is still one game left on the Week 10 slate, NFC North battle between the Washington Commanders and the unbeaten Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have won 9 of the past 11 meetings. They're 11-point favorites. Our coverage on HQ leading you right up to kickoff.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.